Hi everybody, it's Fabio, and today I want to have a discussion about what are the criteria that a raid leader has in order to decide which is the best healer setup for a mythic progression. Now we are talking about mythic progression here. I want to make this clear. If you want to run through heroic and progress through it, you can do it pretty much with any healer composition, as long as your healer know what they are doing and they are knowledgeable of their class. You can get it done with any healer setup. Even if with an optimal setup, you probably have an easier life getting it done. But if you don't have an optimal setup, it's not a big deal. In mythic progression, the difference is wider, is bigger. So you can get it done with a bad healer setup, but the time that it will take you to complete the mythic progression is going to be significantly longer. So having an optimal healer setup actually matters. But what are the criteria? Because most of the time we think that it's have a mix and pick the best, the healer that heal the most. Well, actually it's not the case, and we're gonna discuss this in this video, and we are gonna suggest and have some hint of what is the path going into battle for Azeroth. Now, if we see at the performance of all the 6 specs of the healers in Untold's The Burning Throne, we can see that the difference between the top healer and the worst healer are very small. In this case, we're talking about 50k HPS. This is HPS, Untold's The Burning Throne, all the 11 fights put together, and this is the average of the performance of the different specs. And this graph here is referred to the 75th percentile. Very small difference. So there is not a significant throughput difference between the healers. They're perfectly balanced, I will say. This is the reflection of the amazing job that Blizzard has done keeping all the specs of the healers aligned as throughput. Throughout Legion, they've been buffing and nerfing here and there where it was needed some of the specs in order to keep them aligned. So if we change the percentile, we see that the difference is still small. Well, it's even smaller because it's still 50k the difference, but being that the throughput increased as in average, the percentage between one healer and the other is actually smaller. An interesting change that we see regards Discipline Priest that jumps ahead. This means that from a good Discipline Priest and a great Discipline Priest, there is a bigger difference than what happened for the other specs. It means that Discipline Priest still has a higher skill cap compared to the other specs. Actually, also Resto Shaman seem to have some high skill cap involved, especially if we go to the upper end of the curve, 95th percentile, and Resto Shaman goes up and the gap is even closer. So 50k is not a big deal. So a raid leader will not decide who to bring based on 50k. It's a very small difference, and throughput is not gonna be the main criteria for your decision of who to bring. And this is very important because many times somebody see an amazing Resto Druid somewhere and thinks that Resto Druid are overpowered and they can heal twice as much as the other healer. Just to throw out an example, it's not the case. The throughput capability is pretty much aligned, and everything points toward having the same result going into Battle for Azeroth. So we do expect that also in Battle for Azeroth, Blizzard will try to keep the throughput of a different spec more or less aligned, and I mean, it makes sense, right? But still, we think that there are criteria that will make the selection between who to bring to the raid. And this is based, in my opinion, always on utilities. But what do we mean for utilities? Utilities could be a healing style. For example, Holy Paladin are the only one tank healer in the game currently. Resto Shaman can heal stacked up fight. Resto Druid are very strong with healing of the move, and they obviously have a hot style. But there are also other utilities. For example, tank CDs, burst healing, immunity, spirit link totem, barrier, etc. These are tools that actually can change your strategy into a fight. Having spirit link or not, having barrier or not, could change the strategy of your raid going into a fight. So they are that important. If you have a great healer but you don't have spirit link and barrier, you cannot do certain things. And here you're seeing in the background Mythic Imonar, because I think it's a great example of all of these tools that the healer have that can help with the strategy of the boss itself. If you have a Resto Druid in this fight, it's gonna help a lot with tranquility in the first and the third bridge crossing. It's gonna make the difference. You will notice if you don't have a Resto Druid. On the other hand, coming back on the second and the fourth crossing, if you have a Resto Shaman with Spirit Link Totem and a Disc Priest with Barrier, you can have the strategy that you can pop all the traps together, clean them up, and then go cross the bridge. It's a strategy that you just cannot do if you don't have one of those classes. If you have a Holy Paladin, you can help keeping the tank alive in the second platform, especially when you're clearing all the traps. So it's not that you cannot bring the other healers, you can definitely bring the other healers, but if you have those specific healers, the strategy can be in a certain way. Now, as you can see already from a first glance, the healing utilities are not balanced. There are certain healers with a lot of utilities and some other specs that are lacking of utilities. And the scope of this video series is try to track those utilities and chart them out so that you can easily see how is going to be the situation in Battle for Azeroth, because these will make the base for the decision of which healer are gonna be mandatory for your raid. For example, Holy Paladin still are the only tank healer in the game. Just that alone makes them basically mandatory. They've been mandatory for all Legion. If you want to have a good healer setup in your mythic progression, you had to have a Holy Paladin and probably a Resto Shaman for Spirit Link Totem, Ancestral Protection Totem, which has been very viable in the last fight of a raid, which are the most important, stacked up healing, burst healing, all of that. Resto Druid, Disc Priest, they've been very good. It's not that you could not bring a monk, they've been viable healer and they've been present in mythic progression. So you can totally have a perfect healer setup bringing a monk, but they are not mandatory, while other healers, they've been mandatory. So going into Battle for Azeroth, we see that, for example, Resto Shaman are losing a couple of CDs and this will hurt their burst healing capability. On the other hand, Disc Priest, they are getting 3% damage reduction on all the atonement target, and they can now spread their shields with the removal of a CD on Power Word Shield, and they've been buffed with absorption capability with Rapture, empowering the Power Word Shield. So the scope of this video is just to let you know how it's gonna go, because if things stand as they are, there are gonna be some healers that you will always have to bring in Mythic progression. But most of all, we still have time. There are still months before Battle for Azeroth launches, so we can provide the Blizzard development team with a constructive feedback, because I would love to see more variety, and the only way is to provide some specs that are currently lacking some additional utilities. So let me know what you think, guys. I wanna just throw out an idea. The first thing that I would suggest to the Blizzard team, if I had a chance, is please give us a second tank healer, because otherwise we're gonna be forced to bring one Holy Paladin in every Mythic progression from now on, also in Battle for Azeroth, and I would like to see more variety. If not a complete tank healer as the Holy Paladin is, it would be nice to have a monk or a holy priest, for example, just throw out an idea, being able to spec for being a great tank healer, so that they can, if they want, be a real replacement for a holy paladin missing a raid knight. So let me know what you think, let me know your ideas, because I'm looking for nice suggestions to throw out especially for a couple of specs, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao!